Tech bros literally only want one thing, and it's absolutely disgusting. Of course, we're talking about running Python in the browser. So I'm sure you hear all over the news. It's the only thing that tech bros want to talk about these days. And it's finally happened. It's called PyScript. So pyscript.net, I have this open up on my browser. So let's talk a little bit about PyScript. PyScript is created by Anaconda. So this is the website, Anaconda. A lot of you are very familiar with it. You're using a lot of the tools that are maintained by Anaconda. And PyScript itself is a framework that allows users to run Python and create rich applications using Python in the browser by simply using special HTML tags provided by the framework itself. And we're gonna go and take a look at the examples. In here you have the HTML tag, and then you have PyScript print. Now you can do that. This is boring, but let's take a look at some other examples here. So it says here, what is PyScript? Developed by the team from Anaconda, including Peter Wang, Fabio, Philip. PyScript is a system for interleaving Python in HTML. So this means you can write and run Python code in HTML, call JavaScript libraries in PyScript, and do all the web development in Python. So it means that you don't actually have to find a way to take Python, serialize that into something that the browser can understand. For example, JavaScript, for example, JSON, and then use the JavaScript library in the front end to consume the JSON, rendering something. That's something that for up to this point, if you've actually done any kind of Python modeling development, any kind of API development in Python, you have to find a way to sort of take Python and translate that to something that your web browser can understand. And this process is called serializing and deserializing, meaning the opposite direction. All right. What does it mean? Well, the most obvious thing is that with PyScript, you can now write Python in HTML and build web applications. So the bottom line is that PyScript allows users to write Python and in fact many languages in a browser. So if you want to go through some examples, I think this is the website pyscript.net. You can click on the download, you can click on the install, and you can go and take a look at what they have. For me, I'm just gonna hop right into the code and just show you what you can do with it and just give you a quick tour of PyScript and how to build some applications. And we built some visualizations as well, so you see how you could visualize some data sets and stuff like that without ever having to worry about taking that and then going to JSON or using some other languages and manage that with JavaScript or some other front-end languages. So you can do everything in Python right away. So they are all just HTML tags, all right? So there are 3 specific HTML tags we're going to talk about, and we're going to go through them in this quick video. So let me turn off my browser now. I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code because I'm so used to it now, but you can use any IDE you want, all right? So let's go and make a directory, and I'm going to call it PyScript demo, and I'm going to change directory to that PyScript demo. I'm going to clear the screen, and then just open up the folder, all right? So now there is nothing in our directory. This is a blank, completely new directory. Let's go ahead and just create a simple HTML file, and let's bring in PyScript, and let's see what we can do with it first. We're going to create like, I think 2 or 3 examples. Each one of them are going to be, we're going to increase in some complexity. You're going to bring in some new syntax and stuff, all right? So the first one, let's create a new file, or you can just click Control-N, right? And you just have to say Control-S to save it. And the first one, you can just call it demo0.html, whatever. Or you can call it index.html if you want to, right? And once you save it, you don't need this sidebar anymore, so just Control-B to hide that. And then once you're in here, index.html, one thing about Visual Studio Code and a lot of IDEs today, one thing about them is they come with this thing called an emmet abbreviation. So it allows you to, for example, you can say something history and you can hit tab and it will just complete that for you. So that's what I'm going to be using in case you're wondering, like, how do you just type, the holding out and I don't see you typing, right? So you could do something like history and you could say some sort of like my style, and you press tab and you would just say history class my style and a history. So it gives you a lot of that wonderful convenience. And one thing it does as well is you can put an exclamation mark and then hit enter or hit tab, and it will just create this scaffolding HTML document for you, and you could just go ahead and just type out the rest. So for example, in here, I just have a tab twice and then change the title into any title. So in this case, I'm going to call it PyScript demo, and I'm going to save that, all right? By now, you should see that there is a index.html because you click save, and this you can open in containing folder. And then when you open in containing folder, all you need to do is to just right click on that, and then you just say open with your browser. So I now did that already. So you just have to open with browser. That's all you need to do. And you should see that there is a PyScript demo there on the title. Okay, I'm now going to bring this up a little bit now because I think you can see the whole thing without me blocking your view. If not, during the editing process, I'm going to zoom in and zoom out again. I guess that's what we can do as well. All right. So I have PyScript demo open on the left. Shrink this down a little bit and keep it there. So the first thing we're going to learn about is to just call PyScript. That's really just PyScript, and it would auto close for you. If you don't have the auto completion, you can also type it out by hand. Like, it's not a big deal. Just open up, okay, PyScript. And then from here, this is where you type Python in. This is where you type your Python code within the HTML file. So opening tag PyScript, closing tag PyScript. All right. So in HTML, you always want to open, you want to close. For example, in the head, you have to open, you have to close. Body, you have to open, you have to close. I think a lot of you probably have a lot of familiarity with HTML already, and you don't need to know of this. But some of you may not come from a web development background, or may not have some knowledge into how HTML tags works. So that's what you need to know, is that every time you see an open, that's like head, title, you close the title, body, you close the body, PyScript, you close the PyScript, all right? And you can start to write Python type in here. For example, you can say import something. But for this to work, you need the JavaScript to be loaded in first, all right? So let's go ahead here. Maybe title could be at the bottom. So we could maybe have somewhere here. So after the to meta, you could have something like let's first bring in the style sheet. So the style sheet is responsible for how things looks like on a web browser. So style sheets are where you control things like colors, like the positioning of elements on the web browser, the size of the fonts, all of those things, all right? So to create a style sheet, you can say link and press tab. It will give you the emmet link relations style sheet, and then here is where you put in the link. So I have that open up on my browser, so I know exactly what I'm looking for. So pyscript.net/alpha/pyscript.css, all right? So that's the first. Style sheet is responsible for all the aesthetic elements, okay, all your styles elements. Now the next thing we're gonna do is to bring in PyScript, the JavaScript script itself, all right? So to do that, you say script, and again there's the emmet abbreviation. So click tab, and then from there you just have to give it a source, and the source here, would be similar to what you have here, except now it's not a CSS file, it's a JavaScript file. So pyscript.net/alpha/pyscript.js. So all of these is still in alpha, so they are still a little bit rough here around the edges. I trust that as the community move ahead with this initiative, there are going to be new enhancements, there are going to be new improvements. So just be aware that this is very recent. I think it just was announced, I think 4 or 5 days ago. So that's that. So that's pyscript.net/alpha/pyscript.js. And what we're going to do as well is we're going to use this thing called the defer. So if you've never seen defer, what the defer attribute does is it tells the browsers not to wait for the script. So instead, the browser will continue to process the HTML to build the DOM. So DOM stands for document object model. It's going to build out the web page, and script will execute only after the page has finished parsing. All right. So browser has finished DOM construction and rendering process, then the script will be called in. All right. So it's in a way just telling the browser not to wait for the script. Just go ahead, do your painting, build your DOM, and do your rendering. Right. That's what that's what defer is doing. And now we can actually write our Python code. So as a simple example, just to motivate example a little bit, we're gonna go ahead and say import math. I know what you're doing. You're thinking that can we not tap this to be nicer? No, you can't. I'll show you why. But let's just go ahead and say let's put in the math square root of 25. This shouldn't be hard. It should be 5. But let's see. Okay. So let's save that. And now once you have index.html, again, what you should do is to go into your folder, click on this, and then say open containing folder. And then once you're in open containing folder, what you need to do is to just double click on that. Or just right click and then open in a browser. Open in Chrome, open in Firefox, whatever, right? Then once you have that open, you can just refresh the page or hit enter. And there you go. So 5.0, all right? So that's pretty nice. Change that to 49, save that, and it will still render. This is all done in Python. So once you save it, go back to your browser. Again, you may want to refresh the page. And there you see 7.0. So notice what would happen if you are trying to tap this along and indent them, and you save them. And now you're going to get something of an error. Let me wait for it. It says here that there is unexpected indentation, right? So that's not going to work. So this is kind of something you want to just put up with. I know if you have like OCD, you know, you're probably not going to like how it forces you to to have no indentation. But I guess you have to put up with that right now. I'm sure that better tooling is going to come around. But right now, okay, that's that. But what if you have some really long-running script? What if you have some massive script, Python script, and then you try to... do you really want to put all of them in there? Probably not. So a better way to do that is, let me open up a new file, and I'm going to call it demo1.py. Okay, I'm going to call it demo1.py, and I'm going to put my math statements in here, and I'm going to put my Python statements in here. So all my Python logic and stuff is going to be in the demo1.py. So I could have something like print. Let's just have a list comprehension. I want to say I if I say I square, then they're not going to use math. So we have to use something. We try to use the math so that we know that it's working, right? So we're going to say math square root I for I in range to 5. Because I initially wanted to do I square, but if I do I square, then there's no point bringing this math in there. So right, that's cool. So math square root I for I in range. Let's save that. Now, if this is working correctly, then the import statement should work, meaning you should be able to bring math in. And then once you bring math in, you should be able to use list comprehension to generate this, and this should come back into index.html, right? And how do you link them together? Well, to link them together, you can do PyScript again. And now, you put source. And within the source itself, this is the current directory. This is demo1.py. So we're going to say current directory slash demo1.py. It's going to even auto-complete that for you. Look at that. So demo1.py, this is why I love Visual Studio Code. You have demo1.py, save that. You don't even need them to be. You can just have them like that already now. And let's go back to our browser and see what happens there. Okay, now it's not working. If you inspect the element, let's see what it says. It says console. It says access to fetch for origin null has been blocked by cross-origin requests are only supported for protocol schemes. Alright, the reason is we're serving this locally. Right, this is a file. If you notice that if you look at the address bar, it's saying file. It's not saying this is not a HTTP protocol or anything like that. It's actually just file. So here it's saying that that's blocked. Alright, so how do we overcome this? Alright, so the error comes from the fact that you cannot use a script file like this as a module without using a server. So you will need a server, right? Exports, imports in JavaScript only works on servers. They do not work on local machines. So what I'm doing here when I'm developing is that just now it complains about that. And so the way I would go about that is I would just go to extension. I would just install a live server. So for example, search for live server in here. And the first result, live server, launch a development server. This is by Readweek Day, I believe. Launch a development local server with live reload feature for static. That's what you want to install. So go ahead and do that. And then once you've installed that, you can now call the index.html and you can just right click and say open with live server, or you can just say alternate L, alternate O. Alright. So right click on index.html and say open with live server. And if we do that now, okay, now it's working. And we know it's working because if you go to demo1.py, we actually, this math.square root is not going to work if this import fail, right? So for this print to come up to work, it needs to, import math needs to work first. So that's how you got it working. If you don't want to use this approach, maybe you're not trying to use Visual Studio Code, you still want to use some sort of your own favorite IDE, and you don't have a live reload feature here, or you don't have a live server, and you don't have a live server feature in here, then what you can do is to use the HTTP server module from Node. And the way you do that, let me show you how I would do that really quickly. You could install npm, just npm install HTTP server. So that's something like npm install, and then you say HTTP server, and I think HTTP dash server. And then from there, once you've done that, you can just run HTTP server. So you can say HTTP server and run it on the local directory. You put a dot. That's how you do it. All right. So that's how you do it with the Node module. And if you don't want to do that, another option is to use the Python HTTP server. So you can do something like Python 3. If you have Python 3, of course you do, and you say http.server. So this is also how you launch a HTTP server, and you can also do it that way. So you either do that, or you have to use the npm module. So npm install, I think you have to install it globally, because then you have that namespace. You can run HTTP server without actually trying to specify that. So npm install -g global and HTTP server, and then go ahead and just launch that. So that's at least 3 ways to do that, right? So you can do either of these two, or if you're using Visual Studio Code like I am, and I don't know why you wouldn't be using Visual Studio Code right now. One of the best pieces of software Microsoft has ever produced. So click on extensions, live server. It's something that I think even the worst Microsoft critics would have to applaud them for, give them credit for. It's really one of the best thing that Microsoft has ever produced. So now we confirm that this is working. What else can we do? Well, let's go ahead and add a let's add a third level header, right? So let's go ahead. Third level header, you say h3, and let's try to add an interactive REPL. So interactive REPL allows you to embed this nice REPL that anyone could go in there and read, evaluate, print. All right. We've seen how we can use PyScript, and then we've seen how we can use PyScript source. py-repl works by using another tag called py-repl, and that's how you do it. All right. So py-repl itself can also take an optional argument. You can style it. You can use it to style it. For example, here you can say ID, and then you can say REPL1 or whatever, REPL demo or REPL1, whatever. Right. I'm gonna also leave auto generate on. I'll explain what that is in a second. Then once you have these two, if you look at your page now, you should see that there's an interactive REPL, and you should see that there is sort of like an embedded shell for your users to actually experiment with code or interact with something in the backend, whatever. So if you go ahead and try and do our import math again, so let's say import math, and let's go ahead and say print math.square root 49 again, or let's say 64 now. You can click on this button, or you can just hit shift enter. So shift enter will evaluate that and you get an answer. So you get 8. Alright, that's cool. You can try 81. Oops, did not put that in proper brackets. 81. So let's put that in a separate one here. Run that. And you should see 9. Okay, let's refresh the page now. Keep it there. By now, another question that you may have is, what about external libraries? What about things that are not in the standard library? So for example, NumPy and Pandas, can I do that? So it turns out you can, and the way you do that is you wrap them under py-env, stands for environment. So py-env, and we're coming quite close to the end of the demo now. So NumPy is one of those that people like to use a lot, folks in the data science world like to use a lot, and Pandas is another one. So we're gonna have py-env and we say pandas NumPy. Now, if we were to do that, you can go into demo.1.py and you can change this to use some sort of NumPy code, Pandas code, you can do that. You can also, so whatever it is that is loaded in here, they will also be available in the REPL. So if I get back into this, my web page here, I can now go ahead and use the NumPy and Pandas because I define them in the Python environment, right? So essentially, let's go ahead and say import NumPy, np, import Pandas, pd, and let's go and do something that uses both NumPy and Pandas. So for example, I'm going to say x equals to pd.series, and I'm going to have a ton of things. I'm going to have 7, 8, 3, and then let's say, because I want to use NumPy as well, I'm going to say np.nan, not a number, and then I'm going to have 4, and then going to have 6. All right. So if this works, then I should be able to print x, or I could just say print x and square for print I for I in x, right? So let's run the whole thing. And so now we see 7, 49, 8, 64, 3, 9, and then nan. That's not a number, so do nothing. 4, 16, 36. So it shows you that the NumPy and the Pandas both got successfully loaded in, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to run this, right? You wouldn't be able to do np-nan, you wouldn't be able to do pd.series. And in fact, if you want to see how a data frame looks like, let's go ahead and just import pandas. Actually, we've done that already above, but we can go ahead and also use pd.util, and I can say .testing.make data frame, just like that, and I can run that. And you see that the data frame is still going to be rendered correctly. So you see the, there are some random strings here. So make data frame just kind of generate some random noise so that you can use them to do some quick plotting or whatever. So show some demo, right? It's probably not useful in the real world, but generate some stuff for educational purposes, for illustration purposes, or for example, a demo, all right? What about adding some charts and adding some plots and stuff like those, right? So I'm going to show you how we can do that. I mean, there should be so many other ways to do that, but since this is so new, I'm using a lot of these examples directly from the official documentation, and I'm just removing those things that are unnecessary and just maybe clean up the example a little bit for you, right? So first thing is we're going to try and load in, instead of NumPy pandas, we're going to bring in bokeh and panel. So we're going to say bokeh. It's something that a lot of data scientists like to use anyway. It's either bokeh, it's like Seaborn, maybe Matplotlib, more classical ones, So there's these are charting libraries, and panel is really just used to generate that div to hold our image, right? Then if we scroll back up here, so since we bring in, remember how we bring in the PyScript and we need to bring in the JavaScript up here? So same thing in here with bokeh, we need to do the same thing. So I have my CSS, I'm not going to touch that, but now this is where I want to put my scripts in here, and I have them somewhere in my nodes, so I'm going to bring all of that in. Just to save you some time, not going to type that out one by one. So essentially what you see here is I have the bokeh widgets, the bokeh tables. And the reason why you need the widgets and the tables is when you render them, bokeh allows you to play around with it. For example, saving it to a desktop, those functionalities there. And then jQuery is needed as well as a dependency. So those are things that I brought in, and that's really it. And then panel is because I brought in panel, so I want to bring this as well in the JavaScript. And then now let's get down. Let's add a break. So BR stands for break, and then also let's do a history, and I'm gonna delete this, and I'm gonna actually have visualization. So I'm gonna call it visualization, and within this visualization itself, I want to create a div. So you can say div, and I'm just gonna call it plot, right? So div, id equals to plot, there is going to be nothing in there because we're going to use our Python to generate that stuff and then throw it into plot, right? So it's just going to be nothing in there. And then now we're going to generate that plot using PyScript again. So we're going to say PyScript. So similar stuff you learn up here already, PyScript. And from here, we're going to say import panel as pn, import numpy as np, import pandas as pd, and we have bokeh there. So we're going to just bring from bokeh models, import columnar data source. You don't actually even need that. If you want to, actually I think we can streamline all of that as well if you want to. But just to make things easier for me, it's kind of a way for me to just take a data and then just say that's the columnar data source, create the data frame for that, and then it would just do that for me. And then I would have bokeh plotting. This is something that you absolutely need because otherwise, what are you gonna plot with, right? So you're gonna import figure for that, and then finally, we're gonna say from panel.io. Now this is really cool. So pyodite, without pyodite, none of this could be possible. Pyodite is really what's responsible for bringing in the, taking the Python and then allowing PyScript to work the way it should be. So pyodite is one of the key components that makes this PyScript happen, right? So you're gonna say import show, show without capital, and then you just have to create a data frame. So you could go up here and copy generate the random data again, just like what we did there, or we could just create a sample data frame. So we can say pd.dataframe. And we're gonna say numpy.random.rann. So this generate a random data frame, right? And we wanna say 10, maybe 3 columns, and then columns would just be what? Let's just keep it simple. We have column A, B, C, D. So now that we only have 3 columns, we just want A, B, C, right? So we're just gonna say columns equals to, we just say list, and we say A, B, C. So this is gonna take the A, B, C as a string, and then you're just gonna generate a list. So it has the A and then the comma B and then comma C. So this is perfectly what we want. I'll put a cum sum around all of that. So cumulative sum around all of that. And then remember I said we shouldn't have any indentation. So I wanna remove all of that as well. You can have spaces, just no indentation, right? And I wanna create a panel. So figure, P stands for plot, create a figure, and this figure comes from bokeh plotting. So give it a height, give it a width. I wanna say height equals to 450. If it's not good enough, we're gonna change that later. So width, I wanna say 600. So I have the df, I have the p, and I want to say cds, and this is just stands for column data source, columnar data source. So take that, put it in here, and then say data equals to, and when I say pass that in again, and then I want to say from df. So that's from data frame. Where is the data frame from? From this, right? So you take data frame and then generate this columnar data source. And once you have that, now you can go ahead and create your lines. So you say p line, and I want to say index. Remember, this is the first one is a. So when I say a, source is just gonna be the same. CDS, give it a color, you can give it red, and I'm gonna copy that twice. This I'm not gonna have green, and I'm not gonna have red, I'm gonna have green, and then I'm gonna have orange. So like a traffic light. So green, and here I'm not gonna have A, I'm gonna have B, then here I'm gonna change it to C. If you want to, you can have all of this using async IO as well. So you can bring in import async IO, and right at the bottom, you can just await for that. So await, once this is all done, await, and then await P. And where do you want to put this in? Remember, we created a div ID equals to plot, so that's where we want to put them in. So when I say plot, if you name it differently, of course you want to change this as well, right? So I'm going to save that now. And the reason why this isn't working is because we misspelled all of that. So I want to change all of this. Instead of columnar, it's actually just going to be column data source. All right, so save that. And now we're looking at a nice plot, right? You can drag the plot around, and this is why you need to bring in all the dependencies on the JavaScript earlier. So if you did that already, then you should have the same plot here. Let me zoom out a little bit here, and you can even go ahead and save it and export that. You can refresh the page, you can reset the scale, you can use the wheel zoom, box zoom. So box zoom, for example, allows you to just zoom in this area, zoom into this area, for example, and then you can reset, right? So pretty cool. If you want to have 4 columns, then all you need to do is to change this to 4, and then here instead of ABC, you want to have ABCD, and then here you just have to add another one. This time I'm gonna give it purple. Okay. In fact, we're gonna change all of this to be fire break, goldenrod, .jblue, I think, save. And you see that everything else still works. There's 7.0. There is still all of this coming up from our demo1.py, and then there's still that REPL where you can write your code, import numpy, np, and you can still do all of this stuff in there, and then visualization is still going to be there, right? So you can go ahead and create a data frame now. You can hit pd.read.csv and read it from somewhere. I don't know where you want to read it from, something, yada yada, and then from there, you can go ahead and create another one, say df.read, df.head, df.tail, and then you have all the visualization in here. And you can sort of expand from this idea and make some really full-fledged dashboards, and have a few line up together next to each other. Those are things you can do as well. And that's kind of it. A very short video. Just really want to show you how you can use it right away in your code. It's not the setup time is really simple. The setup steps are really simple. You don't really have to do a ton of things to maybe install these dependency setup environments and stuff like that. It's really easy to get started. All you need to do is to just you don't even need to worry about any of this stuff. If you see how easy we get started, we just have to go in there and load in the PyScript CSS, PyScript.js, and then from there you can start using. So we talked about 3 things today, right? py-env, PyScript, and then there is the py-repl, right? So py-env is where you put in all your dependencies. This is what you want to bring in. So numpy, pandas, bokeh, panel, all of this stuff. There are also other things you can bring in. Don't have time to show you all of that. PyScript, really you can do it one of 2 ways. One is to just really import, write your Python statements and functions and everything in there directly in here. Or you could just say source, src, source, and you can just pass it where you want to pass it in. So if you want to create a folder called scripts, and you want to move everything into that, you can move this into scripts. And then from here, you just say scripts / demo1.py. So that's how you do it. And then you have the interactive REPL. These are the rest of the HTML. So these are all standard HTML. And then finally, py-repl. This is where you could create a REPL and bait that onto your web page as well. And this is to show you how you can piece together some of these ideas to generate some fancy looking a dashboard kind of view. You can do that as well directly in your HTML. So that's kind of it. I'll leave all of this onto my repository. I'll put them up on the repository, and you can go and fork them. You look at the colors are now prettier. There's the Dodger blue, there's the purple, that's our, I think that's our goldenrod. That Dodger blue is here, Firebrick is here, right? So if you want to go and fork it, go ahead and fork it, and then go ahead and experiment with that. Start to create some beautiful stuff, and then leave them in the comment. If you create something nice, put it on my GitHub, and leave them in the comment section so I can also maybe showcase that or feature that in the next video. Alright, if I have time in the future, I'll dive deeper into PyScript, and I'll show you a little bit more about what you can do with PyScript, and maybe build a project out using this, build a whole full-fledged dashboards using PyScript. But for now, I'm just gonna leave you to it, just to keep the video short and introductory. My first impressions with PyScript is that it has a lot of potential, and I can certainly see it becoming more and more integral to a lot of people in the data science community. And if you have an idea for what you'd like to see covered with PyScript or Python in general, just leave a comment as well. You guys have a nice day. Be nice to each other. Bye.